What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. I'm sorry for my little hiatus. I've been trying to work on some music. I want to start dropping music next year and I want to be consistent with it. I just don't want to drop a song and then disappear. I'm working on a whole new catalog of music so I can release sometime next year. But we're back. And today, I'm going to show you guys how to mix vocals in Adobe Audition with Adobe plugins, Wave plugins, and Slate Digital plugins. All right, I just want to mention, just because I'm using Adobe Audition effects as well, doesn't mean you guys can't use this preset. You can just replace those effects with other plugins. Like one of the Adobe effects I'm using is Adobe's Autotune. So instead of using Adobe's Autotune, you can use Inquires Autotune or Wave's Autotune. One of my compressors are an Adobe Classic Soft Knee compressor. You can use a Wave's Classic Soft Knee compressor. So if you guys aren't using Adobe, you could just replace the Adobe effects with another plugin that's similar. Just want to mention that. I'm gonna do a little freestyle for you guys, and I'm gonna show you guys the vocal chain that I'm using to mix these vocals. So we're just using a random 2-track YouTube beat. I got this beat from Jija. If you guys want to get some good but cheaper beats, you can get leases for $8, tracked out exclusives for like $40, and Jija's been around for a long time. They make great beats. All right, so we're using a bus track for the effects, and then I can link these tracks to the bus track so I don't gotta add effects on each track. All right, so I'm gonna punch in a little freestyle to this beat, and then we'll go over the vocal chain that I'm using to mix these vocals. Let's get it.
I be checking on my list, doing what I need, got me doing what I wish. I be rolling on some green, I be sipping on some gin. All the sound too clean, yeah, it's Kelly on a mix. Getting hard for me to miss, really feeling like I'm him. Off top with the flows, yeah, I'm never gonna miss. Way too hot with the flow, it's a hot one, yeah, we got one. You are not one, you ain't got none. Young pop with the flows, what are those? You ain't coming close, really on the road. You should take a note, I be at the top with the flows.
All right, so the vocal chain that I'm using for these vocals, again, I'm using Adobe Audition, Waves Audio, and Slate Digital effects. I will leave links below to all these plugins and Adobe if you guys want to go check them out. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm using a bus track for the effects. That means all these tracks are linked to this one track, and this one track is where all my effects are. You can't record on this, it's only for your effects. All right, so my first effect that I am using is our Waves Audio R de-esser. I actually love this de-esser. I started using it about a month ago, and it works great. I'm using the male DS Narrow, and I think I changed the frequencies a little bit. But yeah, our de-esser made by Waves. And then we have our EQ. So I didn't do much with the EQ. I cut some of our lows off to about 198. All you gotta do is hit this high pass filter and it cuts the lows, and then you can adjust the frequency. I cut the highs off with our low pass filter, same thing, but the highs. This is for it's not too harsh, not too SE. I'm gonna bring those frequencies back in a minute though. And then I brought the mids up a tiny bit just to give it a little bit more presence. Then we have our first compressor. I love this compressor. I use it all the time. This is our classic soft knee compressor. I use this on almost all my vocals. So the EQ and our first compressor are Adobe Audition effects. And then we have another compressor. This compressor is made by Waves, the SSL comp, the SSL compressor. Highly suggest it. Great compressor. I am using our punch preset. Got an aggressive attack on there. Then we have our multi-band compressor made by Adobe. With this compressor, it allows you to attack certain frequencies. You got your lows, your low mids, your high mids, and then your highs. I'm using our pop master preset. We also turned the brick wall limiter off. I brought our gain down a little bit. But those are my settings for my multi-band compressor. Then we have our Autotune, our Adobe Audition Autotune. I love this Autotune. It has a really natural sound to it. If you want, you can crank the knobs and get that T-Pain sound. But I like this having that natural sound to it. Now on this little freestyle, I'm rapping, so the Autotune picks up a little bit more. But if you guys are doing melodies and singing and keep your attack at 2 and your sensitivity around 100, then it will give you a really natural sound. The next plugin we are using is our mastering plugin by Adobe Audition. So if you guys go to special, you'll find mastering. Also, if you want to find your Autotune, just go to time and pitch. You'll see the Autotune. So this has a few different effects in it. We have an EQ, reverb, exciter, widener, loudness maximizer, and an output gain. For the EQ, I slightly brought the lows down, the highs down. just a little bit. No reverb. Now the exciter, this will give you like crispiness to your vocals, like a shh sound. It's like saturation to your vocals. It'll add some texture to your vocals. You have 3 different filters here. You have retro, tape, and tube. I'm using tape. I have a video on this. I will leave a link down below if you want to check it out. And that is it. I'm just using my exciter. Think of the exciter like crispiness. It just adds crispiness to your vocals. Then we have our first Slate Digital effect. So you have a compressor up top, which I'm not using, and then you have your transients down below, which I am using and is one of the main reasons I use this plugin. Now the transients will give your vocals more detail and make them sound punchier. It really highlights your vocals and gives them like a punchy, articulate sound. And then we have some fresh air. Now this is also made by Slate Digital. This is kind of like your exciter, but a little bit different. The texture is a little bit different. Fresh air. I have a video on this as well. I will leave a link down below. Then we have another Slate Digital effect made by Murda Beats. And that's our Murda Melodies. All right, so we cut the lows a tiny bit. Probably not really necessary, but we cut them off a little bit. Sometimes I do that after I compress my vocals, just to make the vocals fit in the beat a little bit more. I cut some of those high frequencies out to make it less s. Now, if you guys remember at the beginning of this vocal preset, we took out those highs with the EQ. The fresh air and the exciter helps bring those highs back, but with some texture. This way your highs are still present, but not too harsh, and they have a nice, unique texture to them. Then we have a bunch of different effects here on the side, but I'm not using too many. We have some saturation, some warmth, and I think that's all I'm using. Next, we have some reverb made by Waves Audio. Now, I changed a bunch of different settings here. I'm just using the default preset. But even though I changed a lot of things, I'm using only a little bit of reverb. When you're doing rap stuff, you don't need too much reverb. But these are my settings I'm using for my reverb. Next, we have some Adobe Audition Echo. I'm using the stereo vocal echo, and I lock left and right channels. But I'm only using a little bit. You can barely hear it, just to fill in some space and make my vocals seem thicker. And then last but not least, we have our Clay 2A limiter to limit everything off, make sure there's no peaks. Solid limiter, love this limiter, made by Waves. And that is our mix for this freestyle. And just because I'm rapping doesn't mean you guys can't use this on pop songs or singing songs. I will leave the links below to all these plugins and these effects. Also, if you guys want some Adobe Audition vocal presets like this, but only Adobe Audition effects, links are down below as well. We have a whole website full of Adobe Audition presets. But that is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the freestyle. I hope the preset helps, and I hope you guys like the video.
I'll be checking on my list, doing what I need, got me doing what I wish.